Alright, back again, Luke here. And as you can see in front of you, there's quite a bit of mess, parts, and tools. And this guy here, this is something that I'm working on right now. You'll see it's a Nintendo Entertainment System, but it's the European Edition. Now, this is the first time that I've had, or I've owned one of these systems before. I've had several NESs, from the time I was younger until now, but never had a European one, and really never understood what the differences were between the European version and the regular NTSC version. Well, after getting this one here, this one was something that was donated to me through Facebook. I put up kind of like a little comment saying that if there was anyone who's throwing out any old systems or thinking about tossing them out, then just send them over my way and I'll see if I can give them a second chance and, before they get tossed out. So, really nice guy, Francisco. He sent this one out to me. He's like, yeah, man, see what you can do with it. I don't know what's up with it, but, if you can fix it, it's yours. I was like, all right. So I went and I took this thing apart. There are several different issues with this one, so I'm not going to go into too many details as the video here is going to be probably long enough. I want to focus on a couple of specific things. When it comes down to the NTSC versions of Nintendo Entertainment System and the PAL versions, now, back in the day in the 1980s, Nintendo was really thinking about piracy, and they did everything they could possibly do to make sure that games weren't pirated, and there was no inner swapping of NTSC parts through PAL and vice versa. So what they've done, or what they did back in the day, is a lot of people may know, these things have a region lock chip on them. So that's one way of protecting it. They also, for the NTSC version, it plays in 60 hertz. The PAL one plays in 50. There's another one. The socket on the back for the power supply is a bit larger. So a regular standard power supply for like a Japanese power supply or so won't fit in the back of this. That's another one. Some of the games, as an example, like this one here being Batman, will only allow you to play certain stages or for a limited amount of time, and they won't switch into different the different stages. It'll lock up after like one or two stages. That's another one. Some games played faster than others, like Super Mario Brothers. You might have remembered I put up a crazy video on that a long time ago. Super Mario Brothers for PAL, if you put it in an NTSC system, it'll play it at super high speed. It's almost like hilariously funny to watch. But that's another one. And on top of that, there was one more. Like Nintendo, they didn't have enough there to keep people from, swapping games or, making sure that the parts and stuff weren't interchangeable enough. The last thing they did is this. This is a controller. Wouldn't think anything of this, right? Just a regular basic Nintendo controller, no markings on it, nothing really that sticks out. The PAL version of the NES and the NTSC version of the NES, with the controllers are also security locked. So they have a security feature to make it so that you cannot play NTSC controllers on a PAL machine and vice versa. You can't use PAL controllers on an NTSC machine. That it was kind of like the final straw, and that was something that when I was repairing this, I had no idea what was going on. I went over to the controller ports. Now this controller here is NTSC one. I got everything finally. Like I said, there was a lot of things wrong with this one. Finally got it up to where it would display an image and it would work. But when I plugged in the controller, I found that the system would automatically hit start, which I thought was okay. But after that, you couldn't select any of the buttons. I tried wiggling the controller, and what it would cause is sometimes the character to squat down and stay in a locked position, or it would just do nothing. If you left the controller plugged in and started the game up, it would start the credits and it would start the game for a limited amount of time, but then it would instantly flash and reset itself. And after removing the controller, I realized it's not the machine, it's the controller. So, this is the trick here. What we're going to be taking a look at after all of this rambling is how to mod the controller ports on a PAL machine so that you can use NTSC controllers. Now, there are two ways that we can do this. One of the other ways is we could take a PAL controller and mod it to work with an NTSC machine as well if you have just the opposite. So you found some really good deals on some PAL controllers, want to change them over to NTSC, you can do that. the way that we would do that, and keep in mind, these are things that I, through my own research, being frustrated with this, trying to think it might have been a grounding issue, might be bad solder joints, it might be loose connections on the inside. Going to my wit's end to try and figure out what was wrong with this, I did decide to take a look at this online, and this is where I found all of this information, and I thought this is too good to not share with everyone else. So if we take a look at a controller here, this is the inside of the controller circuit board. If this was, for example, a PAL, this is an NTSC one. The way to get this to work with an NTSC system without doing any modifications to the system is to focus on this point here and these 2 points here. Now, by using a couple of 3.6K resistors, this is something that, like I had mentioned, somebody had figured out, which is great. You'll take, these aren't 3.6, but if they were, you'd take the 3.6 resistors, or 3.6K resistors, sorry, and you twist them together. Then, once you have these two twisted together, we would, let's see if we can do this while on camera here. Let me see if I can find my cutters. So, we've got our two resistors, we've tied them together on one side. We're going to clip the ends off of it. So it's like so. We're going to use a bit of solder here to solder these ends together. Probably do this one like so here. This will be fun. Let's see if I can use my mouse here to... Okay, like so. I have to clean my soldering tip. We've got these two soldered together like this. We're going to go back over to our controller. And keep in mind, this is just for demonstration purposes. This is to convert a PAL controller to work on an NTSC machine. Obviously, this is a PAL machine, so I want to be able to use my NTSC controller. But if you wanted to use your PAL controller on an NTSC machine, we're going to next, let's see if I can keep this in the light here so you guys can see it a little bit easier. We're going to focus on this point over here. And we're going to put a bit of solder on this pad. Well, this isn't going to affect it. Well, I'm going to wind up removing this once I finish the video here, but just to let you guys see. Then what we'll do is, let's see, we'll take our, you remember these are, if you get the resistors here, you want 3.6. We're going to make sure that these aren't touching this other pad over here. And I'm going to solder this one in place. My soldering pen is completely corroded here and in need of some repairs. And so we've got that soldered in place. Then finally, what we're going to do is we're going to solder this and this to these 2 points here. So eventually you'll have this point and this point soldered to these two here. You can clip off the extra leg, and that will be your modification. You'll be able to use the PAL controller on an NTSC system. So just keep that in mind here. This is, like I said, this is kind of a bit rough here, but just want to show you guys a little bit of an example. Let me see if I can make this a little bit clearer, just in case there's any misunderstandings. So we've got this one here, we've got this one here, and you would solder this point and this point together, and you would have your controller modified. You'd be able to use that on an NTSC system if this was a PAL controller. So that's the first one here. Now just taking a look at this. The other way that we want to take a look at this is I have, like I had mentioned, I have two NTSC controllers, but I don't have any PAL controllers. This thing was just the machine and just came stock, just the bare console itself. I had, luckily, one game that I could try it with, or so I thought at the time, in my collection. So I gave this a shot, was able to get it running. With the second part, this is how we can modify the machine in order to make it work with the NTSC controllers. Now, inside these controller ports, you have to remove the plastic piece here. You'll notice that there are a series of diodes that are located inside the controller here. We can probably zoom in a little bit more so you guys can see this a little bit better. Let's take a look at this. So you'll notice that there are a series of different diodes here all around the controller. What these diodes were intended for is to protect the system in case of any sort of power surge, or protect the CPU, so there wasn't any damage if something went wrong. I've never seen anything really bad happen with an NES, or to the point where the controller ports would be bad or blown or anything like that, but I have seen it with other systems. So what we need to do is, nonetheless, we need to bridge all of these diodes on the back here. And by bridging these, it will create the contacts that we need in order to use an NTSC controller. Now, the points that we're going to be bridging is basically all the way around here. You're going to see there's 2 points here. We're going to bridge these. We're going to bridge these, and these. So we're kind of creating just almost like a U shape around the controller pad here. What this will do is allow us to play the game once we get this situated here. So what you can use, you could use anything. I mean, obviously I just used a couple of capacitors or so. Maybe the legs off of a capacitor, you could use that. It could be just some blobs of solder to bridge in between the 2 points. But let's see if I have anything laying around here that I could use to bridge in. I probably could have used the resistor legs that I had. Oh, there we go. Yeah, this resistor will work fine. So what we're going to do is just put some solder on each one of these points here in the back. This is going to be kind of hard to keep it in the light while doing this, because this thing does not like to, does not want to stay. Oh, okay, maybe that'll work. So once again, we want to try and focus on going around this here. So we'll give this a shot. Go and put some solder on each one of these points. And the final result will be that you can use this controller port here with an NTSC controller and not have to worry about finding PAL controllers for it. So let's see here. Keep in mind, this is a really quick tutorial, no cuts, just to show you guys how to do this here. Obviously, if you want to take the time and do this a bit cleaner, that's one way that you can do it. If you want to try and do this more thoroughly or so, then that's fine, but this is just a tutorial, so I'm sure some people may be saying, oh my gosh, that's not right, but just don't focus on that. All right. Other than that, I mean, Nintendo was pretty clever back in the day. Definitely had some worries about people taking their games and swapping stuff out, and they did not want anything to do with that. So this is what we get in the end. Get a lot of people developing hacks and taking a look at ways around the system. So in the end, Nintendo really didn't do what they intended to. They didn't get away with it. So, well, yeah, this process, it doesn't take too long. And this is something that for people who don't want to change around their system or don't want to mod their system, that's something you don't have to do. You can perfectly use PAL pads on a PAL system and NTSC pads on an NTSC system. There's nothing wrong with that. I do know that some people, however, have probably in the past bought some controllers and then tried to use them on their system and thought like, oh my gosh, it doesn't work, and the seller ripped me off, or these things are broken. But in fact, it was just the controller itself not working with the system as the system had intended it to be worked with. I think it's just a bit too cheeky, if you ask me, about going to this extent to make sure that things don't get modded or don't get swept around. Well, what's that? So people aren't using things or importing things when they shouldn't be. I'm trying to do this while looking through the camera, so this is where the difficulty comes in, because I want to make sure that you guys can see what's going on here. But let's see. I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll probably stop the video here, and I'll show you guys what it looks like after we finish. That way you guys can get a better idea as to what the final product looks like, and then we'll switch it on and I'll let you guys see how it works. So I'll get on that, and I'll be back in a little bit. Alright, so after a few minutes here of soldering, you can see the back part now is completed. You can see our bridged contact points. Have this on controller 1 and controller 2. So all of our contact points are bridged, and now with this here, using our NTSC controllers, we are going to be able to play some games here. Let me get this thing all turned on. I have to flip the switch on my monitor. I think it's turned itself off. And let's give this a second here. Flip the old power on this guy. And you'll be able to see in the background. And with our controller here, left and right, we've got everything sorted out, and yeah, it's ready to rock. Keep in mind though here, you know, this is obviously, it's going to be a little bit in the way just as just for some demonstration purposes here. But you can see Batman here. Got her down, up, jump, etc. Now let's try and turn this off for a second. But everything works perfectly. So, and keep in mind this is using an NTSC controller, so no problems at all. And there you have it. But nonetheless, just want to share with you guys a bit of a modification video so you guys can play some of your favorite NES games without having to worry about the controller that you used to play them with. But that's about all for me for right now. Like always, I'll put up another video here soon, so thanks for watching. Whee! Good European NES.